March 19th, and we're glad that you're here. So we're going to take a moment of silence to reflect or pray. Okay, our flag salute this week is going to be led by John Harrison and our four-way test by Craig Eaton.
Please join me in the pledge to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and the four-way test of things we think, we say, or do.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Yes, it will be fun.
Okay, we have a couple guests today. I want to go ahead and recognize Jill Hazeldine, who just sat down. We're glad to see you back. And then, Elliot, you have a guest?
Yeah, this is my colleague from Clubhouse, Nikki Cosway. She brings a lot of spunk. She's a lot of fun. I don't want to say too much. I'll let her kind of speak for herself.
Hi. I don't really speak a whole lot unless I know you, but it's nice to meet you. It's a really good experience for me to have, and I appreciate being here today.
Okay, I don't think we have students tonight. It is spring break, so I don't blame them. Okay. Hopefully they're enjoying whatever they're doing. Did I miss any other guests? Okay. A couple of announcements. So, Storypalooza is literally 1 week from tomorrow. So, a lot of things have come down to now that we really, really need help with. So I know that there has been a volunteer sign-up genius go out. Feel free to share that. We need a lot of volunteers. If you are, Holly, would you make sure it gets shared with Interactive Rotary, please? Okay, great. And Brady, will you make sure it gets shared with Honor Society? Okay. I think maybe that got sent out, but just to make sure we're covering all of our bases. We need you to sign up. There are many, many, many different things that you can do. Depending on what interests you, I bet you can find something. This is our club's fundraiser, and so it is an all hands on deck, y'all. We have 950 kids coming at once. That's a new change. On Friday morning, that was not dictated by us, that was dictated by NPS. So there's going to be a lot of kids roaming around Friday morning. And then, if all goes well, we're doing our PR circuits, we're trying to get the word out. But if all goes well, we'll have double that amount sometime through the doors on Saturday. So we do need your help. We need you to be there, we need you to show up, we need you to, just be enthusiastic about the event. Keep promoting it to your friends and family. There are posters over here on the table. If you have a business that you can place that in, if you have a place in mind that you think that would hang that up for us, please take some and let's get the word out there. It is also time to prepare the books and get things ready for our first graders. So today, I know this is kind of a change and a sudden add in, but today, right after our meeting, as soon as you can get across town or anytime until 5 o'clock, we will be at the Carrington Community Clubhouse with stacks of books to be stamped and stuffed in a bag. We can keep you busy, basically. We're also doing that again tomorrow. So the address is 4324 Cannon Drive, and if you didn't write that down right now, you can always text me or call me and I can tell you how to get there. So, like I said, all hands on deck. Here's the one that I need somebody to step up. We have banners that go at intersections. I am 5'1" on a good day, so there is no way I'm going to go be able to use a T-post driver and get those T-posts in the ground and hang the banners. So I need somebody to step up and do that. The banners are in my car. Liz has the T-posts. We can set you up. I have the post hole driver. I just need somebody to say yes. We can tell you where you go. And it's,
I can help coordinate it tomorrow during the day. I will coordinate between stamping and such, but I can help coordinate and direct, but I cannot drive the post in myself.
right.
I also volunteer my husband to somewhat possibly help. I need a Rotarian to really man up and like say I'm strong enough to put these posts in the ground.
Yes. There are 5 intersection banners, maybe 6. So it doesn't take that long to do it, hopefully. Anyway, any hands that just want to, any hands that just want to go up right now, feel free to raise them. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Michael and Rick, if you guys will get with me after the meeting, we'll get you everything you need. Thank you. That's a huge check mark off my list. Thanks. Okay, Kyle has an announcement about district conference and district training.
Okay, thank you. So it's that time of year again where we have our district conference. We also have our district training. So everyone here who's not a guest should have received an email from me. I sent it out to all 1,000+ folks in the district, which that's always a fun email to send. So you should have received something from me this morning. For those of you, if you're still within your first year of Rotary, every year there is a district conference, and it's basically hosted by, it's usually in the town where the district governor is. So our current district governor is Michael Ridgway. He's in the Center Club, that's the morning club. It'll be at the J.D. McCarty Center for part of it. It'll be at the Standard for part of it. It'll also be at the Cleveland County Fairgrounds for part of it. So Liz has been, instrumental in helping, get that set up. So anyway, it's a great way to meet other Rotarians in the district. It's also, there's like some training, and we got some great speakers, lined up and everything. So I would highly encourage you to do that. The Saturday evening, so this is in 3 weeks, the Saturday evening is the foundation banquet. So for anybody who has received a Paul Harris Fellow, you will be recognized, at that dinner. So I would encourage you to attend. And then the district training will be 2 weeks after that, so that'll be April 25th. So anyone who's an incoming board member, I would encourage you to attend that. If you're wanting to, if you're interested in secretary training or treasurer training, or, with our new district grants chair, which is Liz. So there will be district grant training, as well. So that's mandatory for every club to have 2 folks who are going to apply for a district grant. And then for anybody, and the last thing is, anybody who's having any issue with emails, because I did get a lot of emails that did bounce back all throughout the district. If you're not receiving any district or club emails of any sort, or if you have anything part of your Rotary profile that needs to be updated, I'll hang out for a few minutes after the meeting and we can update that in real time. So if you had a change of address, email, phone, something like that, job, let me know and I can come find me and I will update that for you. Okay? Wes?
So for the procrastinators, when's the latest on the registration?
I think you can for district conference, I think you can register that Friday, April 10th and stuff, so is what we're doing. I mean, preferably before, because Liz needs to get food numbers, to folks, but the sooner the better.
All right. Okay, I do want to say thank you to the club for my flowers in honor of my dad. I'm sure that if you were here last week, I ran out really quickly. So my dad passed away. I appreciate the support from my fellow Rotarians and friends. I don't know if you read what Stephen put in the weekly bulletin, but I thought it was really sweet, and I think it's a good reminder of not only do we give back to our community, we give to each other. And that's one of the really big benefits to me of being in this club, is having a really nice support system. So if you didn't see it, I just wanted to read it. I'll try to get through it. Our club has been weathered by an extraordinary season of grief as we mourn the passing of a cherished member, a beloved spouse, and 2 fathers. In times of profound loss, the true strength of a community is found not in the absence of sorrow, but in the way we carry it together. While the weight of these losses losses is heavy, the spirit of service that unites us also provides a unique foundation for healing. By leaning into one another and offering the same compassion to our fellow members that we give so freely to our community, we honor the legacies of those we've lost. Let's move forward with patience for ourselves and a renewed commitment to being each other's greatest source of support. I thought that was really nice. Okay, on that note, any other announcements that I'm missing? Do you want to say anything about volunteers? You good?
If they get an email, let me know.
Okay. Did you hear that? If you did not receive an email with a Sign Up Genius link to volunteer for Storypalooza, please let Liz know. Okay. Okay, well, I'm just going to hog the microphone for a few more minutes. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker. So I want you to welcome Rachel Freeman. She's the CEO of City Care, where she leads innovative solutions to end homelessness through low-barrier shelter, supportive housing, and healthcare integration. Over her 20-plus year career, she's raised more than $100 million to expand the reach and impact of nonprofits across Oklahoma. Under her leadership, City Care operates 2 low-barrier shelters and 112 units of supportive housing and is launching Oklahoma's first medical respite shelter in 2027. In 2026, City Care will replicate its model to Tulsa, where it will operate the city's first residential low-barrier shelter. Rachel is frequently sought out by cities and partners to help design and implement effective, person-centered homelessness response systems. She brings a strategic, data-informed approach grounded in dignity, connection, and long-term stability. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Rachel Freeman.
No, I think we do, yes. Yeah. Thank you for bearing with that bio. Those things are always, hard to listen to about yourself. Okay. So my name's Rachel Freeman, and I know enough about Norman to know that you want to know where I'm from and what school I went to, and so I just start there. I grew up in the Tulsa area, and I was a first-generation college student. I did go to the other school, but I didn't know any better. No one had ever told me. But I have been working in nonprofit in Oklahoma for about 25 years now, and much of that work has been in the Norman community, and it's been a real joy to get to know your community. And what I always say about this group, about Norman, is that you're deeply involved. And when I show up to talk to a group, it's always well thought out questions, folks who are educated on issues and passionate. Even if they disagree with me, they're passionate, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for having me. So I want to tell you a little bit about City Care. We'll start there. So who are we? So City Care was a group of 3 guys. They were friends, and you might recognize some of the names. It was Larry Ross, Wes Lane, and Steve Zabel. You guys recognize those? Okay. So in about 1994, they decided to start serving a weekly breakfast out of a church in downtown Oklahoma City. And they were serving a breakfast to folks who were living unhoused. And I don't think they had a thought beyond that. I think that they felt a stirring to do something for folks living outside, and that's what they were doing. And so the next year when the Murrah bombing happened, it destroyed, obviously, a lot of downtown, but among the buildings that were destroyed was some transitional housing that was owned by the YMCA. And the YMCA wasn't going to be able to rebuild that transitional housing. And so transitional housing is jargon, sort of, but basically what it means is that someone lives outside, and then they transition inside. And so that transitional housing comes with a lot of support as you get your feet back underneath you, and we call them wraparound services. That just basically means anything you need, we're gonna provide, okay? So this housing, this transitional housing, was a tool that the city of Oklahoma City had utilized to get folks back on their feet and back to self-sufficiency. And so those 3 guys who had been making pancake breakfast now for a couple of years at this point within like 2 years, said, well, maybe we could do it. I think they had just enough naivete and optimism that they incorporated as a 501 and began to look for a place to build some transitional housing in Oklahoma City. So the lore goes that they went to 30 neighborhoods and groups just like this, and they said, this is what we want to do. We want to rebuild this transitional housing for folks experiencing homelessness. And 30 times the group said, cool, that sounds really great, but not here, not in this neighborhood. So the 31st neighborhood that they went to was West Lawn Gardens, and they built our first supportive housing project, which I'll talk about in just a second. So, I just want to start here, because I think that for the sake and integrity of these conversations, that we have to just start with the facts, okay? So, homelessness is not an isolated phenomenon. And I hear a lot when I'm talking to people and they're kind of first dipping their toes into this issue, they're like, well, why are we seeing more? Why are we seeing more people on the streets than we did when I was growing up, right? And there's all sorts of, hypotheses why it is, right? You built a shelter, they want to be there. What else do we hear? Mental health, substance use disorder, those kinds of things. So the driver of homelessness is the intersection of a lack of affordable housing and wage stagnation. Simply put, people cannot afford to live inside. And if you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you. So every time that median rent goes up $100 a month, your rate of homelessness will increase by 9%, okay? So I've tracked this for the last decade for Oklahoma City and for Norman for these talks to make sure I wasn't lying to you. But the point is that people cannot afford to live inside. Does substance use disorder and mental health play a role? Absolutely. But substance use disorder and mental health are no more prevalent in folks who don't have a roof than they are that do have a roof, okay? It's just they're more visible, right? If you're outside and you're surviving, then all of those survival behaviors or any, barriers you have with addiction or your mental health are going to be visible to people. So there's this huge influx in homelessness in two groups that I think are really important for Norman to consider, for any city to consider. One is seniors. It grew by 34% between 2024 and 2025. Why? Because they're being priced out. Because they're on fixed incomes and there's no longer an affordable place to live. And families is the second one. And families, when you talk about homelessness, if you want to distill down, like, what does the average family look like who's experiencing homelessness? It's mom plus 2 kids. Now we have lots of dads, we have lots of caretakers, grandparents who are experiencing homelessness, but that's what the average looks like, okay? Oh, thank you, Lynn. So, what's a city to do? Right? You're seeing more homelessness, and that is jarring and irritating, and it's not meeting the needs of your community members who are experiencing homelessness, right? So what do? So a lot of times what cities do is they start penalizing behaviors of survival, right? Do you remember like the shopping cart ban, right? What else? Encampment bans, we see those kinds of things. In Oklahoma City in 2010, they did a study of the cost of homelessness for Oklahoma City. And at the time, these researchers followed the city for a year. It cost them $29 million, just in costs that they're absorbing every day, okay? So when we say we can't afford to do anything about it, the point is you actually already are. You're doing interventions that are expensive and ineffective, okay? So one of those gentlemen that they followed that was experiencing homelessness in 2010 in Oklahoma City, he cost the city $160,000 in IMSA, collision with police, staying at the county jail, okay? But in 365 days, he was still homeless. So the city absorbed all these costs, and he was still homeless because we didn't get to the root issue of his houselessness, which was he did not have a place that he could afford to stay. So, the thing to think about is the cost of bad, when you're thinking about policy, the cost of bad policy is that folks boomerang in and out of these crisis interventions that are, one, expensive, and two, ineffective. So we have to start thinking about how do we approach this in a different way, a smarter way, a more fiscally responsible way, and actually get people on a path to stability. So City Care, we've been around 30 years, and we do a couple things really, really well. We do low barrier shelter really, really well, meaning we are going to get folks inside, because the secret sauce is what we do inside of the building, right? What you come for the safety and respite from the elements, but what we do inside is so much more than that, okay? We're working immediately on a housing plan. We're housing focused for everybody who comes inside. So low barrier shelter, typically, who low barrier shelters see is the folks that have been chronically homeless, meaning they've been outside for 12 months or more, okay? This is who low barrier shelters are built for. Last year in Oklahoma City, 5,400 people became homeless, okay? 5,400 people entered the homeless response system, and 4,030 of them, it was their very first time being homeless. So what does that tell us? The people that we think about when we think about a homeless individual, and I know what you're thinking, it's not the majority of the people experiencing homelessness. It's a very small minority, okay? The majority are folks who have had stable housing, and then they collide with crisis, health crisis, employment crisis, and they have no relational margin. So when you and I have a crisis, when we have a flat tire, we pick up the phone and call someone. We have resource, right? We have ample resource. We have money in the bank, and we have people to call. And the folks that I serve every day simply don't have that relational margin. So we do low barrier shelter really well. The other thing we do really well is supportive housing. So City Care, we own 112 units of affordable housing in Oklahoma City that we have built without debt service. And we do it without debt service on purpose because it needs to be affordable to the lowest wage earners. So we're serving folks who make 50% or 30% of AMI. So housing in Oklahoma is affordable if you make area median income, which is $61,000 a year right now. 40% of Oklahomans make $50,000 or less. So automatically, nearly half of our population is cost burdened. They're over cost burdened with their housing costs, okay? When you add on intergenerational poverty or physical or mental disability, we're talking about folks who might be bringing in, $650 in Social Security in a month. Where can they afford to live? Well, City Care is a place they can afford to live. So we really think of ourselves as a housing agency, but we use low barrier shelters to connect with folks who have been disconnected from services for a long time, okay? So shelter it's nothing more than a container to do the work. It's not an end goal. We don't want that. That's not our highest aim for anybody, okay? So this is what's on Garden. So I told you that 31st neighborhood, this is what it looks like, okay? And you can see on here, there's other service providers really close, and then all those dots are our homes. So in a half-mile radius of City Care, where we've been for 30 years, there are 3 schools, 19 businesses, and lots of other homes that we don't own. And I show you this because I want you to know that we care deeply about being a good neighbor. So we care a lot about dignity and belonging and being neighborly. We take that into account, and that sort of informs every decision we make. about our built environments, what they look like, how they're maintained, how services are structured. So I know that all of you come to this talk and you have had an experience with homeless services in Norman. Whether you own a business and you've encountered folks whose needs aren't getting met, or you're at a park with your children and you encounter folks whose needs aren't met, okay? I understand that. But when you are housing focused and you have a space for people to be with all of their belongings, a lot of that is kind of moot, it's cleared up. So, if you're interested about us, I really do encourage you to call any one of the businesses, the schools, anyone that you know over in Westlawn Gardens and ask them what it's like to be our neighbor. I think you'll find that they're pleased and happy to be our neighbor. So this is what we offer in a shelter environment. And in 2025, the city of Norman called City Care, and we've been in contact with the city of Norman forever. I met with Richard McCown years ago, just as a concerned citizen and a resident of Norman, and he just wanted to know a little bit about what City Care was doing. And then we've been advising the city of Norman as they called and asked us questions over the years. But when they called us and said, we need an operator for our shelter, we said, isn't there someone local that could do it? Can we help them? Can we share our best practices? You know, we're very open-handed about all this. And the answer was, no, we've run out of options. Can you come and do this? In the middle of winter, I've been CEO for 5 seconds, and the last thing I wanted to do was start something new. But I believe deeply in our model. I see it work every day. I see people stabilize. I see parents get their kids back. I see people in recovery. So I felt like, shoot, I can't ignore this need, and so we're going to go in and help. And so that's why we're here. So I want to say that. So this is what we offer, and those things that are in red and marked out are things that we cannot offer in Norman because of the building that we're in. So my very first talk in Norman was to the downtowners. Are any of you all the downtowners? Okay. And when I went in and said, hey, we hate this building too, you know, we can be looking at it from different sides of the coin and still be on the same team. So for us, the building doesn't meet the needs of our guests, okay? And for the retail community, because they're have nowhere to be during the day, or they have to make a 2-mile trek, right, from where the shelter is to the day's services, it's irritating for the folks who are trying to run businesses. I get it. But we can't provide beds for families because we don't have an appropriate building. And so families experiencing homelessness, and you do have them, cannot come into our shelter and access it. Beds for recuperative care. You've got some folks in your Norman shelter right now who are, you've got one resident who's going through chemo right now. We lost a guest shortly after we took over the shelter. He had had multiple strokes and was in a very, very vulnerable, medically fragile state, and we lost him. You've got folks who are missing limbs and they're wheelchair bound. Okay. There is a need for recuperative care. There's a need for folks to be able to access services 24 hours a day because they're very elderly and very ill, but we don't currently have that. And so when we close in the morning, those folks go outside with everyone else and we say, we'll see you back here at 6 o'clock. That's hard to do when you know them by name. It's really hard. We don't have a pet hotel. We don't have kennels. I went to visit Food and Shelter a couple weeks ago, and there was an encampment behind their building. It was like 40 tents. I said, why are all these people outside? Most of them have pets, and and there's nowhere for them to go inside because they can't take their pet. So we built a pet kennel in our Oklahoma City shelter, and it's full every night. And we get people inside. And again, when they're inside, we get to work on those issues that have led to them being unhoused, and we can get them connected to housing. So we're working on that housing navigation piece from day 15. And the reason we wait till day 15, because half of our guests self-resolve in 14 days. So if you have the margin to self-resolve, or you're already employed, we're gonna let you do that, because we've got enough to say grace over here, right? So we start working on that. Showers. How can I get someone employed in Norman if they can't take a shower in my shelter? Meals. We don't have an appropriate place or way to make meals. We do have some beautiful partnerships with some churches who do some meals, and we're so grateful for that. Sorry about that.
Transportation was the last one.
Thank you. Thank you. Transportation. So again, we've got folks who are elderly, who have mobility issues, are wheelchair bound, and they have to get, if they're gonna go over to where the day services are right now, they have to do that maneuver 2 miles down the road. And that journey is visible, it's undignified, it's hard, and it's irritating, right? When you encounter someone who needs more support than they have on the street, and you're not equipped to help them. So, something that we said to the city of Norman when we came is, yes, we want to come and help you set up low barrier shelter and housing pathways, but this building does not meet our needs. It does not meet the community's needs, it doesn't meet our guests' needs. And that's why I bring this slide to illustrate what would be helpful in a low barrier environment to get people in and get them adequately serviced. Oh, other direction. There we go. So, there's a stat, the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Someone who's experiencing chronic homelessness, so as your experience with homelessness gets longer and longer, everything deteriorates, everything gets harder, right? Can you imagine? So, $97 a day is what your community is absorbing, the costs they're absorbing for folks who are chronically homeless. That is well documented, okay? I asked our housing navigators, when someone comes to you for housing navigation, and so what we do is we work on their income, we work on their IDs, we get them upskilled if they need that, we get them connected to work, we transport them if we have to, right? We'll do whatever it takes to get them back to self-sufficiency. So I said, how long on average have they been homeless by the time they get to you? And my housing navigator said 22 and a half months. That is a long time to try to be figuring all of this out on your own while your mental health is deteriorating, while your health is deteriorating, right? And so then I said, okay, so by the time you get to them and you start this work, how long does it take you to get them to lease in? Assuming they don't have their documents right, they've lost their ID, they don't have a copy of their birth certificate. So worst case scenario, how long does it take? 3.23 months is how long it takes us to get someone doc ready is what we call it, to lease in. And how much does it cost for each housing placement at City Care? It costs us about $1,600. Y'all, it's just smarter to do it this way. Even if you don't care about the individual, even if you said that doesn't impact me, it does. It impacts us because we're absorbing these costs. So, I know you guys haven't said this, but some people say they don't want to live inside, right? So we have 214 folks who live in City Care's housing. We have a lot of others that we care for and that we do case management for, but just in our housing, we have 214 neighbors. 40% of those are families with kids. And so to qualify for our housing, you had to have been chronically homeless, remember 12 months or more, and you have to have a physical disability. The head of household does, okay? We're talking about the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. 95% of them remain housed at the 1-year mark, and all of our housing is recovery focused, it's sober living. So 95% are there at the 1-year mark. We also did some encampment rehousing. You may have heard of Key to Home in Oklahoma City, where in 2 years' time, we reconnected to housing 514 folks who were living outside. So again, they don't want to live inside. Data does not support that. When given the opportunity and the appropriate resources, they absolutely do want to live inside. So our housing, $7,200 is a full year of stable housing in an affordable place that they can afford. So nobody pays more than 30% of their income on their rent or utilities. We combine all that for them. And then we offer them case management. So it's like that, although manufactured, it's still that relational margin, right, that they don't have while we're rebuilding familial connections and rebuilding community. And so just our housing, just City Cares, and we own about 10% of the City of Oklahoma City's permanent supportive housing stock. We save the city $5.5 million in reduced public costs annually by doing this. So, I've seen the social media. I wish I hadn't. I wish I hadn't looked at what some folks in Norman think about a new shelter. They think that City Care is getting rich. We're not. This is a tool for the city of Norman. This is a tool for people who have an address in Norman and now no longer have an address in Norman. Okay? They're not out of towners. This is not a luxury shelter. I saw that comment too, it broke my heart. Because these shelter beds, your daily demand, so in Norman right now, we have 52 beds in our shelter, they're full every single night. When it was cold, the food and shelter opened up their cafeteria with mats. 125 people were in there. Okay? And then there's still, remember I told you, there's that one encampment that I saw, I've only seen one, and there's 40 folks out there in tents. That's your daily demand. That is the state of homelessness in Norman right now. And the thing is a full shelter does us no good. If someone is fleeing domestic violence and they need somewhere to stay tonight, I don't have a bed for them. So the idea is not that you have a full shelter every night, it's that you have the tools and the beds to meet your daily demand. And Norman does not have that right now. Okay? So, we turn over beds approximately 8 times a year. So each bed represents 8 people in a year. Last year in Norman, we saw more than 400 unique individuals come through our 52-bed shelter. And when did we start? Mid-January, so almost a full year. So when we designed this conceptual design, and the city of Norman led that, but there were some community stakeholders, and City Care was among them. And really, the things that we informed was the built environment, how can that negate or mitigate at least community irritation? How can we provide dignity to the folks accessing these services so that they have what they need when they need it to get them back to self-sufficiency, right? So that's what we thought about. And every component that you see in that conceptual design, that was our frame of reference. There's nothing luxury about it. That's just what stuff costs to build now. And it's not gonna get any cheaper. So, City Care, we're here to support the city of Norman for as long as you want us. If you want another operator, we're open-handed about that. Truly, this building will be a good start to meeting the needs of your community. If it doesn't pass, we'll continue limping along where we are, because we care about your neighbors. So, nothing's in this for us. But I do feel strongly that the building is the appropriate size based on your daily demand and includes the services that we need to support your neighbors. So that's why I'm here today. You all will have the opportunity to vote on April 7th, and if I missed anything or can answer any questions, I think I have just a few minutes. I'd love to do that if I could.
Yes. Okay, yes, it's on. Okay, and I just, while Rachel was speaking, I texted Carla Atkinson, who is a member of our club, and her job, I'm sure you've worked with Carla, is to work with the public. And I asked her, she told me some statistics, and I couldn't remember them. NPS alone, today, this year, there are 125 students who are homeless that are identified, we'll put it that way. And last year, they ended with 216. I just think that's important for you to know, that it absolutely exists here in Norman. I know it's not a fun thing to think about, but we do have a partnership with our pantry partners. We've visited them numerous times. That's their focus too, is trying to help kids who are on the fringes or homeless. So I will not monopolize the microphone anymore. Does anybody have a question? Right.
So I have a couple of questions. One, one's a comment. I've read a stat where I think only 47% of the population of the United States can come up with $1,000. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
So, meaning they don't know someone that has $1,000 either.
Yeah.
So, my question is two questions. One, if you build it, be capable of expanding it at some point in the future, or obviously we hope never to have to expand it.
I hope you don't, yeah.
Right. And then I guess tell me the difference between what you're doing and what Salvation Army is doing and what food shelters do. Thanks.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for that. So I hope you don't have to expand a shelter in Norman. The key is going to be, and this is something that Richard and I talk a lot about, the key is going to be what's on the other side of shelter. Where can we find affordable housing for folks to live? Okay, so that's another thing that we're working on. So food and shelter, and the conversation I had with Kathy Billings was, we don't want to duplicate anything you're doing. So tell me the lanes that you want to run, and we want to be a good partner and offer different services. And so in the idea of being in proximity to each other, City Care, if they were the operator of your low barrier shelter, would not duplicate food service, because food and shelter does it really well. We have that benefit of proximity. But they're not providing night shelter. Okay, so that's the difference between the two of us. Salvation Army does have some shelter beds. They have a few shelter beds. Their programs are different and have different requirements than a low barrier shelter. So the low barrier shelter says, come in, we don't care about if you have your ID or if you have a dog, or just come inside and then let's get to work. There's room for both and there's a need for both. I want to say that. The Salvation Army, I believe they have an expansion plan that's going to expand in 3 phases. And the first phase is a kitchen expansion that's coming up, where they'll be able to serve 140 meals at a time. That's great. The second phase is adding, and please don't quote me on this one, because I think it's like 6 shelter beds. And then the third phase is expanding their shelter beds more. So I know that they have not started phase 1 yet. I'm also in the middle of the capital campaign, and those things are not for the faint of heart, right? So I don't know their timeline. I wish I did, but I don't. But I think there's room for for what they are doing and what the city of Norman or your low barrier shelter operator is doing.
Any other questions? We've got time for one more. Oh, two more. We'll do.
Just got a quick, one of the things that I would think would be helpful, you talk about the dignity and stuff like that, is people that want to be there, don't want to be there, whatever, is getting the guests, you call them, something to do, some sense of work, have them help clean the parks, internships, whatever. Now, obviously, you have to give them time off if they're doing a mental health appointment with the psychiatrist or the doctor appointment. But I don't see that anywhere. State, Griffith Memorial had a huge complex
Yes.
that gave their patients something to do.
Yes.
I see that being a huge thing in recovery, instead of saying, okay, you guys go out and do your drugs or whatever, here's something to do that, and we'll allow you to come back in.
100%.
Okay.
Busy hands are good in recovery, for sure. But remember, recovery is this much of our population, okay? It's not everybody. We had this talk a few Fridays ago. Okay, yes, dignified employment opportunities are a key component to what we're talking about. And in fact, the federal government, so HUD, which really provides the homeless services, the bulk of the homeless services funding that comes from the federal government, there are new requirements that require 40 hours of services or employment a week. So we won't see that come down until 2027, October 2026 is when that funding will start flowing, and you'll start seeing those changes. But yes, our residents who live in our homes all work on employment. Some of them they have jobs within city care, but a lot of them make really great money outside of city care. Yeah.
Rachel, real
Yes, sir.
quickly, tell us this is Jeff from Amazon calling.
Okay, yes, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that really quickly. So, in December of last year, I got an email that looked like spam. It was from jeff@amazon.com, and then in quick succession, I got another email from the CEO of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and she said, "You're about to get an email from the Bezos Family Foundation, and it's real." And the Bezos Family Fund, so Jeff and Laura have a family foundation that focuses on family homelessness, so homelessness for folks with children. And it's a closed process, and they do a national search, and they chose City Care, and they gave us $2.5 million to serve families. So we haven't started using that money yet, and I want to be able to use it in Norman because it's very flexible funds, and so what I can use it for is when a family's experiencing homelessness, I can help pay. If what you need is a shallow subsidy, you've got a job but you need help with deposits or first month's rent or furnishings or whatever, I can use this money for that. But as it stands, I don't know where your families experiencing homelessness are because they're living in cars or they're couch homeless. So this shelter would be an awesome opportunity to connect with them and perform housing navigation and get them back on their feet very quickly.